might be the sketchiest backyard build 203 you've ever seen, but it sure is a lot of fun, and this is only the beginning of what I have planned for this thing. A very big goal of mine when building this car was to do my first ever donut in it. Achievement unlocked. Shortly after that, I lined it up against the C220 CDI. Now, seeing that this is my one and only dedicated race car, let's face it, it's way too slow. So to fix that little issue, we need to add boost, and I have done it before, so adding another turbo to that engine probably would have been the best and easiest way to go. Now, looking at both these cars, it seems like I enjoy making life much more difficult than it needs to be. So I had the seemingly impossible idea to add not one but two superchargers to the Intec 4-liter engine. Love it or hate it, personally, I'm just super curious to see what's going to happen with this whole idea. I have been seeing more and more people that have done it before. But not many, and there's probably a good reason for that. Also, these cars that I have seen never drive, they only stand there revving up the engine. That's probably another red flag. Now, there are some advantages as well as some disadvantages when going with a supercharger, or in this case, superchargers. Now, not to get too technical about it, but because we are going to use the belt to drive the superchargers, it does take some power away from the engine. So it kind of uses power to make more power, if that makes sense. Compared to turbochargers that uses wasted exhaust gases to spin up the turbo and therefore create boost. So that is a slight disadvantage, but a big advantage is, and a big reason I'm doing this, is because of no lag. You probably heard the term turbo lag before, so that's why I'm going with the supercharger. Basically, we'll have boost from 1000 RPM just above idling all the way up to 5800 RPM where the limiter is at, I hope. Again, I'm not chasing huge power numbers or huge boost levels, I just want to wake this engine up. Some say it's easier to add a turbocharger to a car than it is to add a supercharger, and then other people say it's easier to add a supercharger than it is to add a turbocharger because of all the oil lines for the turbo and everything like that. In my case, I've spent way too much time just getting these two freaking superchargers mounted on the engine, and then getting a long enough belt to go over all these pulleys. So the first belt I bought was a 6PK 2575, and it turned out to be a bit too short. Now here's the thing, I couldn't just find a bit longer belt, I had to go with the next size up. Unfortunately, the next size up had a huge gap. That turned out to be a 2870, so 2.87 meters long. That's a long belt. This belt was 295 millimeters longer than the previous one. That meant adding another pulley to get rid of all the slack. And with that sorted, we could actually turn over the engine and see if the belt stays on, and then hit the starter button to see what happens. And what do you know, the belt didn't stay on. Also, looking back at the footage, there was way too much movement in this bracket that the superchargers bolt onto. So I had to take that off and reinforce the whole thing. So I spent a good couple of hours reinforcing this thing to what it is in front of us. CNC cut and strong like bull. Really happy with this bracket. I also removed that fancy puny little idler pulley bracket and reinforced it with a 10mm thick solid steel bracket, so that thing is solid and not going anywhere. Also use the same 10mm steel for that second pulley to make that as strong as possible. Super solid stuff, this. This close to being done with this whole bracket and belt setup for the twin superchargers, but I do need one more key component, and that's why I have this piece of aluminium rod. I need a lathe, and then we need to make a little spacer for that second pulley that I added to the system. Said it before and I'll say it again, turbo noises never gets old. For the first time ever, I was given the opportunity to create this piece myself from scratch, and boy oh boy is this satisfying. So I started off drilling a hole through the center, cleaned up the piece I'll be needing, and then added a step for the pulley to slide over. Not too bad for my first time around. This was a pretty simple piece to make, but like I said, very satisfying process. Perfect daily driver. Now that we have the bracket all beefed up, we have this pulley done, it was time to try it again and see if the belt will stay on all the pulleys this time around. And there we have it. The superchargers are officially solid mounted. All the pulleys are on there, the belt is on, and the belt stays on when I turn the engine. However, the celebration was short-lived because a friend pointed out to me that we might have too little belt going around the alternator pulley with this current setup. That might cause this belt to slip on the alternator pulley, which is not good at all. This never even crossed my mind. Kind of explain to you guys what's happening is I have a drill over here and I'm gonna spin the alternator up with the car switched off. Basically, the alternator is deactivated. Spins up super easy, but now when I turn on the car and basically activate the alternator to start charging the battery and everything, this is what happens. Magnetic. That's weird. And when we try to spin it up, that is much harder to turn. So I have to figure out a new route for this belt, change up some of the pulleys to have a bigger surface area of the belt on this pulley. Sometimes you need to take a step back and just breathe. So it's the next day. I was pretty upset yesterday because if it wasn't for that alternator issue, the system would have been done and we could move on. But now I need to figure out more pulleys and it just takes time. I messed around a bit with it and I did find a new route for the belt, something like this. But the problem with this is, with this idea, we are taking too much surface off the crank pulley, which also means it might slip. With the alternator, that's pretty hard to spin around, and I will be asking a lot more from the belt spinning up the two superchargers. I really do need to get this perfect, otherwise we'll just have issues upon issues in the future. But okay, I do have a new idea. So that pulley used to go like this. Now, to try and reuse as much as possible of the things that I made, really proud about that little piece, but unfortunately won't be using that anymore. So that was just more time wasted. But I'm going to spin this around. I might need to extend the bracket itself, and then I'm going to add a pulley up in this area over here, so the belt, let's get the slack about where my finger is going to be the new pulley. It's kind of my last resort, really hoping this works out and we can finally move on. It's Saturday today. You guys want this video tomorrow morning. If the video is late, please give me a break. Please hit that like button. And there we go. Wasn't that hard now, was it? But the real question is, will the belt stay on? Let's turn over the engine, see what happens. What was that noise? Found the culprit. Let's try it again. That's better. I think I never tightened up this idler pulley all the way, so that was why the belt started to walk. Also needed some persuasion with a hammer, but the belt stays on. Let's go. Finally, we can move on from this. This pulley is on there doing what it needs to do. This is perfect. So happy I could end this video off on a good note and I can finally stop making videos about mounting superchargers. I do apologize for that, but in the next video we can move on to boost pipes, getting the intercooler mounted on the front end, and then I need to cut up the original manifold and then build my own. And then once that's done, we can fire this thing up for the first time, or try. We'll see. But hope you guys enjoyed this video. Done with brackets for now. Thanks for watching and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.